It's time to feel the rage. Join us on Film Rage, where we talk movies, current releases, coming attractions, streaming, and classic films as well. Directors and actors, beware as you cannot hide from the rage. My name is Bryce, and I'm part of the Film Rage crew, which also includes Jim.
Hey, hey.
And Murray.
Yo.
Why is it you always talk all the time? I can't
'Cause I
understand
got
why
this
your
sweet,
voice
sweet
is so...
voice.
This is the Merman, the voice of reason. These two can't agree on anything most of the time. Some movies are Mondo, some are just suck. Every week something is going to make us rage. Join us every Wednesday and
Feel the rage.
The year 2000. America is a vast speedway. People line the streets to witness the greatest drivers on earth in a race from sea to shining sea.
This is a death race.
You finish first, or not at all. Death Race 2000.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Hello.
This week, we'll be discussing the science fiction classic, Death Race 2000, starring David Carradine, Sylvester Stallone, and all the rest. Good times.
Oh, it is truly a Gilligan's Island.
It is. Each week on the podcast that wouldn't die, we discuss guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the horror and sci-fi genre with a comedic twist. Aaron, how are you doing?
Dude, I'm okay. I just finished The Last of Us, and I just finished Daisy Jones and the Six, and now they've released Yellow Jackets, so I'm frightened. That one's going to really suck me in.
Dynamite. I know
Daisy Jones and the Six is about as good as the novel.
my daughter Grace is watching Daisy Jones and the Six and is reading the novel.
Yeah, we read it for book club. You don't like, I really don't like Daisy Jones, and the end is just so, I mean, they're not breaking any ground.
Such
But
is life.
people love it. I
Okay.
am tepid, but I watched it anyway. The problem is when you have a musical thing,
Yep.
the songs should be good, and they're really not that good. The only good
Yes.
song is the title, which is not their song, which is a Patti Smith song, and they sing it well. But all the songs created for the bands are like, what?
That is often the gooch. It's like if you have
Yeah.
movies about like fictional music groups, you got to have at least one banger. You do.
Exactly.
You got to have
Hey,
one
Partridge
banger.
Family. They had a couple of
They had a
bangers.
couple of
There's
bangers.
a bunch of bullshit, but you got to have a couple. So if they can write a good song for the Partridge Family, what's the reason they can't write shit for Daisy Jones and the Six?
I agree. Well,
They
then
all
this-
have great voices, I mean, but
there was a show, this is kind of similar, that came out, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe not that long ago, called Studio 60, live from the Sunset Strip, which was supposed to be a fictional Saturday Night Live. The problem was the comedy sucked. You know what I mean? It's that same kind of thing where it's
so
like...
that failed, and then they came back with 30 Rock, which is also Saturday Night Live.
No, they were competing shows on the same network.
Oh,
One was...
well,
because
one contained actual people from Saturday Night Live. That
That
one
is
was
correct.
successful.
That would 30 Rock was a successful because it was a half-hour comedy with Tina Fey and the gang.
Oh my god!
Live from Studio 60 was a 1-hour drama by Aaron Sorkin that took place in the same kind of thing. But again, I mean, the drama part I actually enjoyed. It was when they'd show clips from the show that they'd lose me. I'm like, oh, I see why the show's struggling. Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah,
Very
womp
upsetting.
womp womp is right.
Such is life. Aaron, give us your 30-second synopsis of Death Race 2000.
It's Hunger Games with cars.
Okay. That works.
Basically, in the future, they have like these gladiator situations that the world is compelled to watch, and they love it. Violent times. It's a total gladiator situation where in race cars, and then you run over people in your cars and you get points.
It's Ben-Hur,
So,
is what it is, basically.
It's Ben-Hur. It's basically all this stuff, and
It is basic. All they were missing was Charlton Heston.
it's just to distract the masses from, I don't know, their lives didn't really actually seem to be shitty at all, but it's a distraction of the masses.
We didn't get to. You're right. It's a totalitarian despotic, future, basically.
Right.
But you don't. I mean, they don't really
You
show
don't
us
see
why
any
it sucks.
suffering. There's rebels, but we're not really sure what they're rebelling against.
That's
Children
correct.
starving in the streets? No. Seem fine.
They seem, except when they're getting run over because they're in the street. Very upsetting.
It's just middle America and replace this with NASCAR. It's the same thing.
It is, yes, it is NASCAR.
And
that's basically what it is.
Totalitarian future of Donald Trump's third presidency. This is what we've come to. That's what it's come down to. This is
pretty
it.
much. It's very upsetting.
Where NASCAR, they had to kick it up a little bit.
Had you ever seen this before? I'm assuming you heard of it before.
I'm not sure. I probably saw it when I was younger, because when we were younger and you were driving around your car and like someone would be, a lady would be crossing with a baby in the stroller, and you look at each other and go, 2,000 points. 2,000 points.
Well, that's just
And that was a funny thing to say back in the day. That was lots of fun. Hey, there's a priest. How many points is that? It was
a funny thing to say. Yeah.
It was a funny thing to say. So looking back, I remember it being like kind of iconic. Now watching it 900 years later, I was like, oh, this is so boring.
I'm trying to
The cars look like I don't know, third world country knockoff match cars.
Oh, the cars
didn't
suck.
have decals. The cars suck.
The cars were ridiculous.
The sets were budgety. It was pure, just
matte
Gone
painting.
with the Wind, matte painting backgrounds.
Yes,
it's nonsense. But you can totally see where the commentators and everything that Hunger Games just ripped right. That's right out of Hunger Games, or vice versa. That's where they got the ideas.
Right.
Wacky commentary, people.
This is meant to be a comedy. Make no mistake. I mean, it's dystopian future, but it's obviously meant to be kind of a satire, I guess. Kind of like, have you ever seen Rollerball with James Caan?
Again, we gotta put it on the list because it's probably been 1,000 years, if I ever saw it.
Well, what's funny about Rollerball is if you watch it, it is
besides James Caan on roller skates.
That's a lot of it. Make no mistake.
Funny.
But it was big at a time when in America, roller derby was like the third professional sport that people cared about, essentially, at one point.
Isn't that funny?
So it's like, in the future, I guess they're still playing the game. I guess there's more motorcycles in rollerball, but other than that,
and if you change the ball to the phantasm ball, then you got something there.
Yes. Like, I always tell people when I was a child, the first time I saw Phantasm is because parents were out of town. There was a babysitter. And I said, ooh, I want to watch Phantasm, thinking it was Fantasia. And I was quickly.
What happened to Vicky?
Yeah, it was not Fantasia. The sex scene in the graveyard spoiled that. So
why would you want to watch Fantasia, which is the worst?
I don't recall. It's not. First of all, not the worst.
Sounds like a lie. That sounds
not
like
the
a
worst.
Lie.
Absolutely not a lie. Fantasia is quite good. It's just not a narrative story. Okay?
Never seen it. I've only seen X.
How do you even have an opinion then? Shut your damn mouth.
That doesn't stop me.
Don't stop.
That doesn't
me
stop. No, you can't. I still have an opinion, even with no facts. I got an opinion.
So you don't know if you've seen Death Race before? It's possible.
Possible.
I saw it and I actually reviewed it on the old B Movie Club days. I'm trying to remember how I'd even heard of it. They did a bunch of remakes. I don't want to say a bunch, but they did a few remakes with like Jason Statham.
I think I saw 2050, Death Race 2050 or something.
Well, that's an official sequel. So that's another thing. Right. Exactly. So doesn't this movie take place like today, or am I crazy? No, it takes place 2000, right? 2000, like 20.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Death Race 2000. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Maybe it happened, but we just were busy and didn't notice.
We just didn't notice. It's a sad situation.
It was all part of that. Remember, Fear Factor was a big thing then. So maybe it was on, it was part of that.
It was just another channel.
It was a different channel.
Spike
and
TV.
It was Joe Rogan hosted it.
You know he hosted it. There's no doubt in my mind. Absolutely. Why don't we jump right
Fear
in?
is not a factor for you.
Fear factor was a lot. It was a lot of bungee jumping and then eating gross food.
Eating
So those are your
gross food.
choices.
Hey, I gotta stop you because the more I think about my Trump story, the more I think it's true. Because all the drivers have navigators who service the cars and exist to service the drivers.
Absolutely. It's all part of the deal.
So this really is the greater Trump world. Look to your future, children, to decide.
Pretty much. Look to the past to reveal your future. Let's go to the highlights. What you got?
David Carradine is probably looking his very, very best, I would say.
Oh my God. That's a hot take right there.
Well, everybody always had a secret love of David Carradine. When he was
That's
in Kung Fu.
absolutely not true. I don't know where you're getting this nonsense.
From
ahead.
our mother, for one, had a secret feeling. And then here he is, young. He's fairly buff. He doesn't have long, stringy hair like Kill Bill and all
This
that.
is all a lie. He is
he-
skinny as a rail in this movie when he
Skinny
wears
as a rail,
costume.
Yep, and he's wearing
looks nuts.
spandex. But yeah, he is at his apex of his sexual attractiveness. Christopher Walken, his apex was the Dead Zone. He was a monster before, he was a monster after, but there was this brief and shining moment of pure sexuality. So that's my highlight right there.
I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please respond to Aaron's nonsense that in Death Race 2000, I had to say, when they pull, because he's wearing this black mask the entire time, and he's supposed to be like horribly disfigured.
He's
she pulls off-
Frankenstein.
They call him Frankenstein because he's supposed to be a horrible freak. They pull off his mask, and to me, freak revealed. But to Aaron, she goes in a
He
different
was
direction.
young. He had
very
like they peel it off. He had absolutely baby skin that you like a witch would steal and wear.
Maybe one had. I mean, who's to say? Sweet Jesus. No, Frankenstein, who I guess is the protagonist of this movie, he wears what is ostensibly a gimp costume. The entire freaking thing. Then
With
when
a
he
fake up eye. It's all racially
with a crazy eye, and it would look like he had like weird just teeth, like he had no lips or something when he'd wear the mask. He would like, eh. And then they'd pull it off, and then it'd be David Carradine, and they'd be like, "Please put the mask back on."
That probably was the best bit of special effects where they pull it off, and it was just like little baby face 20-year-old David Carradine revealed underneath.
Not 20-year-old David Carradine, by the way. Sweet Lord. No, and then when he would just wear the helmet, he looked nuts. The helmet by itself, it was the weirdest.
First of all, his name was Frankenstein. His name was Frankenstein, and all of America loved Frankenstein.
People, oh God. Okay, so we have to talk about. So it's ostensibly a car race movie, right? They're traveling.
Yes.
It's like Cannonball Run, basically, with more fatalities. They're traveling
Yes.
from
Purposeful fatalities.
purposeful fatalities. So it's a race, but you get points if you literally run people down.
It's
if
GTA 1974.
That's correct. And they at one point during the movie they tell you how much each person's death is worth. And the only one I wrote down is toddlers are worth 70 points.
That's not
So
a lot
that's
of
good.
points.
That's a lot of points.
Priests are better. Yeah. It was interesting.
It was interesting. But you think, and this happens, they talk about this occasionally, where it's like, oh, the streets are clear. People are not wandering the streets because obviously they could just easily be run down at any moment. But of course, then
honestly, they
Go
don't
ahead.
run down very many people at all. I remember them just like smearing people left and right. And really, not
you
so
know
much.
what? David Carradine, again, our hero, I think murders more people than anybody else combined, frankly.
Because he's the best. He's the best there is.
He's the best.
Including popping other people's navigators by just kind of curbing the road like my ex-husband used to try to run over groundhogs while he was driving. What a horror scene.
Oh my God. No. Calamity.
Groundhogs,
Excuse me.
whatever.
Matilda the Hun ran down Calamity Jane's navigator while he was, I don't know, changing a spark plug or something.
Yeah,
Squish.
yeah.
And she screams. Matilda the Hun is a Nazi, so she screams "Blitzkrieg" as she runs down a
The
person.
whole audience is full of people waving Nazi flags. This is
Like
our
swastikas.
future.
Yeah, left and
Thank
right.
you, Donald Trump. Thank
Did
you,
you-
Donald Trump.
Did you recognize Matilda the Hun's navigator?
Yes, I wasn't sure if we were going to reveal now.
I
That is
gotta reveal it. Go for it.
Senator Fred Grandy, previous of the Love Boat.
He was gopher on the Love Boat. It
And
was-
later, a U.S. Senator.
And later, a Republican U.S. senator. See, it all comes together.
Yeah.
See? So, yes, Senator Fred Grandy. He had like one line in this movie. He's got a big old helmet with a swastika on it, and he's wearing little glasses. And then I'm like, I swear to God, that's Gopher. Yes.
I
It was
have to
Gopher.
ask, did his Democratic opponent just post pictures of him in his Nazi regalia when they were running against him?
You got to. You've got
I don't
to.
think anybody cared.
No.
Back in the old days, it was just like a fun thing to do. Be a Nazi. Put a Nazi swastika on your dirt bike. It was a different time.
In the good old days of the 40s in Germany? Is that what you're talking about, the good old days? What are you talking about?
This is 1974, so it was all just fun.
I don't think it
Imagine-
was.
It
Although-
was like on the back of your faded jean jacket, you could have a Confederate flag or a Nazi emblem. It just meant you're a rascal.
That is true. On the Dukes of Hazzard, they had a Confederate flag on the top of their car, and it was all fun and games.
General Lee. I see a fake General Lee like once a week.
At least. Well, you live in Bakersfield, so that's standard. I mean, pretty much everybody's got a Confederate flag.
It's the West Texas of California.
Absolutely. What's
Dude,
funny
I see
is
full-on Nazi stickers on the back and
no, you
flags.
don't. This took
have.
okay.
I once went to a Scottish festival, and I used to go to those in the Bay Area all the time. Fun times. I go to this one. Everyone's a skinhead. Girls with Nazi tramp stamps and the red plaid shirt. I'm like, this is not like the Bay Area at all. Let's
gotta
go,
go.
kids.
You gotta
We're
you gotta
out.
bail at that point.
Let's
What I was
go.
going to say, in a lighter note, in the 60s, they had a sitcom that took place in a Nazi war criminal or Nazi POW camp called Hogan's Heroes, and it was all wacky, and there'd be wacky, prison guards. So yeah,
All right.
good times.
And I have a story about that. So I was at one of our parents' friends' house with their kids. They were having a meeting in the other room, and I flipped on Hogan's Heroes. Well, how was I to know that the mother was rescued by an uncle during World War II and smuggled across so she wouldn't be put into a death camp? So she came in and she's like, we don't watch this in our house. I was like, oh, and the mother told me later, like half her family was killed in the death camps. So to think that the Nazis were just so dumb and so easy to be fooled
Right.
was like a slap to the whole family.
It is ridiculous that less than
still
20
watch
years
it at
after the
home.
Holocaust, they had a sitcom, a network sitcom, not on the dark
Mhm.
web, but
Not
on a
on the
network
dark web.
sitcom that took place in a Nazi POW camp, and it's wacky hijinks.
And the
Sweet
commander and the sergeant are kind
Sergeant
of
Schultz and
fun-loving,
Colonel
nice
Flynn.
guys.
Yes, yeah.
They wanted you to think they were Nazis, but not real Nazis. It was the
Right.
bad Nazis would come to visit and threaten our good Nazi friends.
Well, and they were played by German actors from Germany, who probably
Which
served
would
in the
be very
Luftwaffe
awkward.
for all we know. I mean, who knows? Anyway, we're getting off.
Well,
on
that's like
bizarre
Christoph
tangents.
Waltz. I always think it's odd when you hire the real Germans to portray these roles. I always think, I'm like, do you feel awkward about this? Do you feel
It must be, but let's be honest. These are people who were probably not even alive during
Christoph Waltz. correct.
Christoph Waltz was not born in Nazi
But
Germany.
Hogan's Heroes, Bernie Kopel, I think he was around and kicking.
Absolutely, Bernie. Was he the guy? I think you're mixing up your German people. Anyway, you're throwing people under the bus.
I'm a German racist, so I'm just going to throw out some German sounding names.
Are you talking
Isn't
about
that his
Doc from
name?
the Love Boat who has a German last name? Is
Oh,
that
you're
how-
right. You're right. Wrong German. Wrong German.
He's an
I-
American, by the way.
He's-
If you're listening, Aaron's views are not represented by the show at large, ladies and gentlemen. Sweet
because
Lord.
we're defending Germans. Well, a lot of times, a lot of these actors that were here during the war and everything were Jewish.
Yeah, of
They
course.
may be German, but they were Jewish.
Right.
So they're
Right.
okay
It's-
with giving it the finger, I'm pretty sure.
Anyway, let's get
But
back
then
to-
you can deep dive Bob Crane. So
That's a whole other kettle of fish.
There's a whole podcast, the Bob Crane podcast. But I used to think it was hijinks. I loved how they had like all these little secret places in the POW camp. But
Well,
you're right.
Now we're going
This
to talk
was
about
what-
this for 20
The
minutes.
war was what, 30 years before?
Well, the reason
for sure.
was there was a popular movie called The Great Escape with Steve
Right.
McQueen, James Garner, et cetera, where they are actively escaping from a Nazi POW camp, where it's not hijinks and fun. It's,
Right.
now it's an action movie. It's not, it's not Schindler's List, but I mean, still, they're trying to, they portray the Nazis as obviously, villains. So they took that and turned it into a half-hour network sitcom. Anyway,
Mhm.
good Lord. Death Race 2000.
I don't even remember what we were talking about. What's our movie?
It could
This
be
often
anything.
happens when we don't have that much to talk about.
That is true. I mean, let's talk about the cars. We spoke about this briefly. They are all driving these crazy race cars, but I swear to God, they look like go-karts at the carnival, is what they look like to
Go-karts
me.
at the carnival with spikes and just shitty spray paint. Like you gave a high school kid a couple cans of spray paint and says, "Hey, make these look badass." They totally look like Dollar Tree Matchbox cars. Like they
They
couldn't
do.
afford the water slip-on stickers to put on there.
No, it's ridiculous. So you got Frankenstein, who again is the mysterious, but I guess he's the protagonist. But you've also got Sylvester Stallone, which is shocking. But this is before Rocky.
He
Before
looks like
Rocky,
Mean
he was in this.
Streets. He's got his like hat on. I think he wore that exact same outfit in later movies.
Absolutely did. Absolutely. So he's playing Machine Gun. What is his name? Machine Gun Joe or something like where he plays like so he's kind of a
Hey.
gangsterous character, right?
Yeah.
Is what we're supposed to think. And then who else? There is let me say Calamity Jane, played by Mary Roranov, whose
Oh,
name I
half
always
the
mess
cast.
up.
Yeah, half the cast of Rock and Roll High School is in this production.
Edie Raoul, absolutely. And then Matilda the Hun is the Nazi. And then there was Nero the Hero, who's kind of dressed like a Roman gladiator or something. Did you recognize that actor?
I did, but I couldn't remember where I saw him from. What was he in?
He was the bad karate instructor in Karate Kid.
Yes,
So there
that's
you go.
right.
We're gonna
That's
talk-
right.
So
I
it's
knew-
an
I
all-star
knew you'd bring
cast,
that
is what we're
forward.
saying.
How
So
come they didn't bring him back for Cobra Kai? Is he dead?
he is back on Cobra Kai. That was kind
see, I haven't watched that
spoiler
shit.
alert. Good grief.
Spoiler alert. If you haven't, that's like I'm going to tell you what happens at the end of Star Wars. You haven't watched it now. Tough shit.
And I was telling my wife this. It's like if you haven't watched the first season of Cobra Kai, you really should watch it. It is a lot of fun. It really is.
I
'Cause
did
it
like
is-
Karate Kid.
Well, okay. Well, then I guess turn the channel and
No,
watch something.
every high schooler, Miss Cobra Kai. Why you don't watch Cobra Kai? And I'm like, because I'm an adult. And I'm a woman."
First of all, how dare you? Second of all, how dare you? No, it's fun. There are definitely later seasons that were a little more dodgy, let's say,
Yeah.
but overall,
That's
I
like
think
True
it's
Blood. It always starts off strong, and then they run out of things to write about. But they're making so much money, they just stretch. The British always end it too soon. The Americans always let it run too long.
they squeeze every ounce out of that
Yeah.
sponge. It's
Till
very
there's
sad.
there's like 4 viewers left. They're just squeezing the blood from the stone.
Yes, absolutely. So during the race, I noticed this. They all take different routes, and I kept thinking, why would they do that? right? Wouldn't and it seemed like they diverge by like 100 miles in different directions. It's like, aren't you all going to the same place? Why wouldn't you all follow the shortest route? But who am I to say? I'm not one of the
And
navigators,
it's
I guess.
12-hour shifts. And yet, mysteriously, after 12 hours, they all arrive about the same time.
Right. Like the actual race part is not that important, is what we're supposed to think. Because there's extended scenes where it's just them running over people. Like, here's a person doing road work. Maybe today's not the day for road work. When you know there are murderous cars flying down the road, running people down. There was a scene where I don't know what it was, like 3 dudes standing in the street playing chicken or something. They were just like 50s greasers with the hat and everything like that. Do you remember this scene? And then 2 of them jump into an open manhole, and the last guy tries to jump in, but his buddies close the door on him, so he gets run over.
If I had to rewrite this, I would do it where it's a secret when it happens, and it just mysteriously goes live. That way, there really should be more people being run over. I mean, if it's a death race, there should be more. It should be Tarantino. Why isn't Tarantino redoing this? Why is he retiring after one more movie? Wouldn't this be the most? I mean, it's perfect. It's 70s.
Yep.
He can pump in all that good music. He's going to quadruple the blood count.
No question.
Wouldn't this be perfect? I think after he finishes his last original movie, he needs to just focus on remakes.
Just all remakes of the 70s.
Dude, I'm gonna send him an email.
Like, he could remake The Devil Times 5, for example.
We are going to set this all up for him. First of all, Death Race 2000, #1, needs a Tarantino touch.
The Tarantino touch. Absolutely.
He already worked with Carradine, but unfortunately can't bring that from the grave. But he already worked with Carradine, yeah.
He did in Kill Bill briefly Volume 1, but definitely Volume 2. He's all over the place.
Okay, which I have to say is a masterpiece.
Well, I always have to tell people, David Carradine did not know martial arts while he was on Kung Fu. Like, not even a little bit.
Because it was supposed to be, our beloved Bruce Lee. Yeah,
that's what they say. It's
Chinese.
Well, and the thing that's so bizarre, David Carradine is not even remotely Asian. Very upsetting.
But if you look at him in Kung Fu, you're like, well, I think they write it so he's like half Chinese.
Right. That's okay.
You're like, okay, it's plausible. Snatch the pebble from my hand, grasshopper. Okay.
So, there's a subplot, which may just be the plot, of the Resistance are trying to kill all the racers, because obviously the race is an apocalypse. People are being murdered left and right.
Right.
They're trying to destroy the race, kill the racers, but kidnap Frankenstein because he's a close personal friend of the president, is what they say. Mr. P, the president.
I don't understand. I think I missed the whole part where all of a sudden he goes from being close personal friends with the president to flip, and because he got the good lovin'. Is that what it was? So now he's not friends with the president. He got the Stormy Daniels touch, and then away you go.
It was something. They're a little dodgy on the details here, where it's something like he was so desperate to win the race because he also wanted to get close to the president, because his hand, because he wore a glove the entire time. When he pulls off his glove, it's like a crazy metal hand that has like a grenade built into it.
So he wasn't friends. Well, he wasn't friends with the president. It's just like that commentator who's, here we are now with my close personal friend, Calamity Jane.
Yes.
So she said that, prep that. So, okay. So it's all just a fictional story.
I mean,
that was very interesting that how he was shifting nonstop. So this must have 12, 13 gears.
It does.
So at one point, she's unscrewing his hand, and yet the car continues to shift. So I'm not sure how that works.
None of it makes any sense. Well, his navigator is like undercover with the Resistance. Like, she's there to kind of steer him into a place for an ambush that will occur. But spontaneously, for no reason at all, she's fallen in love with with Frankenstein. I guess his David Carradine good looks,
His
just
smooth baby skin.
his smooth baby soft skin. So now, she guides him into the ambush, and then at the last minute, she's like, "Oh no, don't go this way. Turn. I've changed my mind. Make sure you run over that dude who's my friend last week, by the way, while we're here."
Oh yeah, and then she purposely, when she was driving, avoid people. It was very obvious. Oh, we'll get another one later.
Oh, I
And
missed
he's
him.
like,
Well, you
I
missed him
missed
because you
him.
turned out of the way wildly, fishtailing out of the way. Yes, that you missed.
and he has no clue. He was like, huh, okay.
Interesting. Well, it's hard to know what he see when your lead actors are as wooden as a dime store mannequin. It's hard to deal in kind of subtlety and subtext. Was he oblivious? Was he aware? Was he along for the ride? It's hard to say. We may never know the answers to these questions.
It's true.
Very upsetting. Oh, good times. Like I said, although Stallone does kill quite a few people, including some dude he asks for directions, he runs him down. His own pit crew, he backs over them just to pick up a few easy points. Frankenstein must kill 30 people in this course of this movie. He drives by, I guess it's an old age home, and it's euthanasia day, where they just wheel out the old folks into the street to just get plowed into. Because again, old folks, they're worth a lot of extra points as well. So for some reason, there's a wheelchair.
So it's like the pound when it gets full, they just put him out in the street, put him on an iceberg to float away.
Correct. Exactly like that. So in a moment, this is kind of a peek behind the curtain that Carradine, Frankenstein, is not an evil dude. He does not run down the elderly. He does a turn and goes into the lounge area of the hospital and plows through all the nurses who wheeled out the old folks. And you just see them flying through the air. Ah! One after another. Squish, squish. Good times. Sweet Jesus.
Matt, we are making this movie sound so much better than it really is. It's amazing. They should pay us, frankly. We should be getting royalties for this.
Cut us a check, for goodness sake. Good Lord. So at the end, Frankenstein wins because all the other racers have gotten blown up one way or another. And there's the president up on the dais, ready to shake his hand, and he just plows takes the car, smashes into the risers. There's bodies flying everywhere. The president is dead. Hey, the dictatorship has been abolished. Frankenstein, you're the president, and you've abolished the race, and you're marrying your navigator. All is right with the world. Good time.
So basically, Carradine is now he was not elected.
Right.
So now he's the totalitarian leader.
That's correct. Well, and that's the rule. If you kill the previous president, then you become the president. It's a rule.
Do you get points for that?
You get extra points. Well, he ran down a race official at one point. And they're like, wait a minute, that doesn't count. You can't run down a race official. He was
like the priest doing the blessing and a race official. And then they gave him points for that.
They gave him points for that? It's like, that would seem to be like, no, we shouldn't give him points for that. Because then they will just run down, the people in charge. It makes no sense. So he must have gotten extra points for running down the president. Who's to say? Good Lord. What else you got? Anything else?
I got nothing. I listed down that the dude who played, what was he? I can't remember. Paul Bartel. Oh, this is behind the scenes. You want me to wait?
Well, if you don't have anything from the movie, we can go right behind the scenes. You ready?
Yeah. All right. Here we go.
Behind the scenes. Go for it.
So Paul Bartel, who's in Rock and Roll High School, makes a brief appearance here, and I think did he direct it?
He directed this.
So he and Mary, whatever her face is, also worked together in Rock and Roll High School with the Ramones and PJ Soul. Was she in Eating Raoul too?
They were both in Eating Raoul.
Were they in a relationship?
Who the hell knows? I think it was a Roger Corman kind of thing. I don't know.
Oh, okay. This is a Roger Corman,
yes.
our blessed friend Roger Corman situation here. He gave everybody a head start.
Yes.
Did you see that John Landis plays a cameo in this?
I did not notice. Who was he in this movie?
He's like some mechanic, so he's
just somebody in the background.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is neither here nor there, but Roger Corman gave like Francis Ford Coppola his
Oh, yeah.
start, and Martin Scorsese, like all these top directors started with Roger Corman's and his crazy Humanoids from the Deep and shit.
Well, it was a chance for people to work, get paid. It was like an internship. You learned how
Right.
to work with a budget. You learned how to do all the stuff with little interference. And it was tight budgets.
Right.
So it was really like
As you could tell from the
internship.
quality, it was a tight budget.
But that's how you have to create a movie to finally learn how to do movies, and you have to practice and keep going. You gotta produce it. You gotta direct it. Sometimes they wrote it. So you had a chance to put your hands in all this. So he gave a start to lots of people.
No question. Let's see.
Oh man, of course.
Yeah, it's a sad situation. Explaining why he took the role of Frankenstein in this film, David Carradine stated, "I started the picture 2 weeks after I walked off the Kung Fu set, and that was essentially my image, the Kung Fu character, and a lot of people still believe I'm that guy. The idea actually was, number one, if you walk off a television series, you better do a movie right away, or you may never get to do one. And the second thing was to do something right away."
I thought this was before Kung Fu, because he looked old and grizzly in Kung Fu. Good God, when was Kung Fu on? Because this is 74.
This is I think it's a little later than that. What is this? This is 1975. Oh well. Close enough. It's there. So he did Kung Fu in the early 70s for a couple years. And then went right to this, which he says springboarded his movie career, but I defy you to name more than a couple David Carradine movies.
The apex of David Carradine movies is, in fact, Kill Bill. I can't even think of any other movies he was in. Was he in other movies?
The only other thing and I'm sure he's obviously was in a ton of stuff, but the only thing I can think of.
40 years later, he was in Kill Bill.
He was in Lone Wolf McQuade with Chuck Norris in the mid 80s, where they fought each other. And there was tension because Chuck Norris is obviously a champion martial artist, and David Carradine is a guy who was an actor who did some martial arts acting, who came to believe he was a good martial artist just spontaneously, evidently. So,
and he was friends with Bruce Lee and had to have been aware that he's the one who took Bruce Lee's roles. I wonder if that had anything to do with it.
Could be. Enemies. Enemies. So he also chose the Frankenstein role because it was a wild departure from his character as I always mess up his name. Chang Kwai Kane. What was his name on?
I think it was Chang Kwai Kane.
Good grief.
Are you looking it up?
I'm not going to look it up. Both David Carradine and Sylvester Stallone did much of their own driving in this film.
Come on, they're go-karts. All your children could be doing much of the driving.
Roger Corman drove in scenes that were shot on public streets, since their custom-built cars that were used in the film were not street legal, and the film stunt drivers did not want to get caught driving them by the police. So the producer did all the driving.
Yeah, it was all basically on like backcountry roads or something outside of LA.
The custom-built cars used in the film did not run most of the time, so they had to be pushed down hills in order to get them to move at all. Moreover, the cameras used to film the cars were undercranked in order to give the illusion that the cars were going faster than they actually were. So there
Kwai Chang.
Kwai Chang Kane.
Kane.
Not King. Did you say King? It's Kane.
I never said King. I never said that. Never! It won a bunch of awards. Primetime Emmy, Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Drama. First episode in 1972.
Well, there you go. Let's see. David Carradine refused to wear leather, so his crazy gimp costume had to be made from another fabric. It didn't look like leather to me.
No.
Honestly. It looked
but who cares? Was he a vegan? So that belt he killed himself with, but that wasn't leather? That was vegan leather?
That was vegan. That was pleather. Absolutely.
Pleather. All right.
Let's see. Mary Woronov Somebody's going to tell me how to pronounce it properly.
She
Who
was
played-
thin, but I noticed that they
She's
pasted
young.
her hair over her tits. So while she appeared to be naked, she showed absolutely nothing versus Tits McGee next to her.
Yes, Matilda the Hun showed gave you a little bit more for the price of admission. Let's see. She did not know how to drive a car. So again, she did none of her driving. Just they do close-ups on her when she was behind the wheel. Like Sean
They have
Connery
it
and
like
Dr. No
towing the
with the
trailer.
screen.
Yeah,
Right.
with the trailer and they're the car in front.
Well, you always know it's fake when they're steering like this. No one steers like this. I don't know if I was just trying to give some. I don't know what's happening. The tremors. According to Roger Corman, several of the custom-built cars featured in the film were later sold to car museums for considerably more than it cost to build them.
Awesome. He's always thinking ahead, Roger Corman. Always thinking ahead. He knows how to turn a buck.
The role of Frankenstein was originally offered to Peter Fonda, who considered the film too ridiculous for words and turned down the role as a result.
Mm-hmm. So he did what? He did Easy Rider and then retired.
And then Ulysses Gold 40 years later or something like that. I don't remember what the hell he did.
Really, Carradine is more successful.
Who's to say? It depends what you're using to judge the people.
I'm saying.
Sylvester Stallone wrote some of his own dialogue for the film. Shocking.
Oh, yeah. Sounds about right. Adrian!
Did you notice in the 70s there were a lot of movies about races, like illegal street races? This is long before Fast and the Furious. There were like the Cannonball Run movies popped in like the early 80s. You had another movie just called Cannonball, which was based upon the same race that also starred Carradine.
Are you aware that Cannonball Run was based on a real thing?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. These were two different movie series based upon the same race that was going on. Ron Howard.
I listened to a podcast about it. It was very fascinating. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, talking about the real Cannonball Run that spun this off.
The real deal only happened for a couple years because it's illegal. It's illegal. You can't be racing on city streets.
Yeah,
it's bad. Ron Howard was in another movie kind of dealing with street racing called Grand Theft Auto in 1977.
So what I'm hearing is men have always liked to race things. Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay. We do like that. Shall we talk about the cast? And the crew, for that matter. Let's do it all while we're at it.
Let's do it.
Let's see. Paul Bartel was the director. He's been in you see him and recognize him. He's acted in a bunch of stuff as well.
He does a little cameo. You would know him from the movies that we said. He was the science teacher in Rock and Roll High School, and Mary was the principal. Wasn't that it?
Something like that. He was in Escape from Los Angeles. He was in The Usual Suspect ever so briefly. What else? Something called he was in Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills. Don't know it.
Heard of it, never seen it.
Heard of it, never seen it. Let's see. Who else we got working on this? We talked ever so briefly about Roger Corman.
And Roger Corman.
He acted in a bunch of stuff too. He was the FBI director in Silence of the Lambs, for goodness sake.
Now I have to go back and watch that. I don't think I knew that.
Little Shop of Horrors was based upon his original movie, The Little Shop of Horrors from the 60s.
Oh my God, I love Little Shop of Horrors. the musical, not the original one, that also had, who was in the original Little Shop of Horrors?
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson got his start from Roger Corman films, for goodness sake.
I love the musical. Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah.
Okay. David Carradine played Frankenstein. You know him from Kill Bill Volume 2. He was in something called Bound for Glory in 1976. Death Race 2000. He was in something called Big Stan. You know it, don't you?
No, I don't.
Simone Griffith played Annie, his navigator. You know her from Death Race 2000, The Choice, Hot Target, and The Patriot.
Don't know any of that shit. Is the Patriot? Wait a minute. I bet the Patriot. Remember, you were too young.
No, this
But
is from
around the
1986.
bicentennial, there were all these books. The Bastard. And I think that's probably along those lines.
Oh, anything's possible.
All
Sylvester
these like
Stallone.
American romance, fake history. Yeah, I
It's a
bet that's
thing.
what that is. I'm just making that up, but it feels true.
It feels real, right?
It feels real, so it must be.
Sylvester Stallone played Machine Gun Joe Viterbo. You obviously know him from
The
Rocky.
Turbo, is that Italian?
It's fake Italian. Creed, Rocky 4, Rocky 3, a lot of Rockies in
A lot
there.
of Rockies. Nighthawks with Billy D. Williams.
With Billy D. and Rutger Hauer as the villain.
We need to see that. I saw that at the theater.
Well, and Stallone has a big old crazy bushy beard for some reason.
Yep.
Like it was the
He
one
looks
movie.
good. Like a black trench coat, walking
Yes,
the mean
it
streets.
was a thing.
I remember
Mary
really
War-
liking that. But
Mary
unfortunately, it doesn't fall under
Warona.
our
I'm just going to
category.
keep talking. Mary
Shut your
Warona
mouth.
played Calamity Jane. You know her from Eating Raoul, Night of the Comet, of course, Death
Mhm.
Race 2000, and Rock and Roll High School.
She
Yeah,
was
tough
a
stuff.
string bean, but she always had, this is her curse. She's always had this young body, but like a matronly face. Nothing wrong with her face, but her face looks so much older than the rest of her.
It kind of looks like an angry face, is what it is. Kind of an angry face. Anyway, Roberta
It's her
Collins.
angry eyebrows. She has
That'll do
Groucho
it.
Marx eyebrows.
Roberta Collins played Matilda the Hun. You know her from Death Race 2000. She was in an episode of Wonder Woman. She was in The Big Dollhouse and Caged Heat. So she was doing a lot of like women in prison movies in the early 70s.
Yep.
Martin Kove played Nero the Hero. You know him from Karate Kid 2, Death Race 2000. He was in Rambo First Blood with Stallone a few years later.
Okay.
Don Steele, or the real Don Steele, played Junior Bruce, the announcer guy, who was always like giving us the play-by-play. He was a real disc jockey.
Because I know that I knew that name, but I didn't know who he was.
Yep,
So that was a disc jockey from back in the day.
from back in the day. I think that's it. Is there anybody else you want to know about? I think that's everybody.
Ain't nobody else in there.
Ain't nobody else. Shall we talk about the rating?
Lay it on me.
Death Race 2000 currently has 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you know what the audience gave it?
A 3?
Just
Percent?
a 3. Hey, 3. They gave it 64%. 64%.
That's a little bit more.
Let's look at the top critics. Are you ready? Roger Ebert. I was torn between walking out immediately and staying to witness a spectacle more dismaying than anything on the screen. The way small children were digging gratuitous bloodshed. 0 out of 4. Boom. Very upsetting. I think that's all we need to say. I don't need any other top critics.
I figure we're in Vietnam and people love the war. People love the war. I just remember Mom and Dad would never let you have like fake guns and stuff.
G.I. Joe.
Meanwhile-
I couldn't have G.I. Joe action figures.
There will be no glorifying of war in our household.
It's true.
Yet our cousins, whose father was actually in Vietnam, had like fake grenades, fake rubber knives, and whatever.
Real guns.
Real guns. It was in my stocking. Merry Christmas.
That's right. You better believe it. What is your rating of Death Race 2000?
Okay, I am going to give it 2 out of 5 wearing David Carradine's smooth flesh like a mask. But
Okay.
when Quentin Tarantino remakes it, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 5.
A 6 out of 5.
In anticipation of him fixing this mess and making it wackier.
I feel like you're being too hard on it. I think Roger's being way too hard on this. This movie is
I'm not as hardcore because I don't care about the violence so
That's,
much.
I mean, let's not moralize. It's really not, it's not like Saw or something. It's not like, oh my God, I have to look away at the violence. It's more like, it's meant to be goofy in my mind. The violence is meant to be like so ridiculous that you don't see children getting run over or anything like that. I mean,
I think he's more disturbed. I think his rating was probably at the time.
Yes.
He was probably at a theater full of little kids cheering it on. And that's what freaked him out.
Get him,
Frankenstein!
Frankenstein!
Of Vietnam, and there's bloodshed on the news with Walter Cronkite every day. And then he walks into this theater with a bunch of 8-year-olds because parents didn't give a fuck back in the day. Just drop off your 5-year-old to go see Death Race. And they're like, yay!
Okay, this review was written 5 years ago, by the way. So
it was not written 5 years ago.
It absolutely was.
Be a reissue. He's been dead longer than 5 years.
Anyway, I'm gonna give it.
I was bored. That's why I got 2.
Okay, I didn't think it was boring. I don't. It's not the finest film ever made. I gave it 3. 3.
You're 1 point higher than mine, so shut your trap.
3. Put that damn mask back on, Frankenstein's is what out of 5. It's fine. I didn't find it horrible. Occasionally I was amused. Didn't hate it. I didn't find it. I mean, you see a little bit of a boob every now and again, not too outrageous.
I saw areola and a nip. And Roger Ebert died on my birthday in 2013. So
he cared so strongly about it that he came back from the grave.
Back from the grave and rewrote it. They had a picture of him. You know, he died of terrible throat and jaw cancer.
Awful.
It was just I'm like, I didn't need to say that.
Anyway, thank you very much. Go to our pages on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're starting to do, you may be watching this right now on YouTube, frankly. So if you are, maybe, whatever floats your boat, you can listen to us.
That's why I put
podcast.
On makeup at 9 a.m. on a Saturday.
And we appreciate it.
For you viewers.
Oh, goodness gracious. You can also email us at the podcast that wouldn't die at Gmail. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the finer podcasts are available. So let us know what you think. Good times. Rate, review, share, all that good stuff. Aaron, what kind of social media stuff are you slinging these days?
I got much media. I'm the person responsible for our TikTok, so I just post my brother's shit. He texts over, so blame him for the sound quality. I am on the Insta. I am the Cult of Aaron. Join the cult. I am Don't Feed the Pigeon. In the upcoming months, I'm going to have some things at the Bakersfield Museum of Art. Come buy my stuff. It's expensive, but it's worthwhile. I am on... Oh my God, where am I? I am on Artsy and First Dibs, Aaron Doherty. Check it out. I'm going to Europe. I need some money, so buy
just
my
send
shit.
money if you want. Just a bag of cash.
I'm gonna have a Patreon account just so you can fund my photography and travel.
Well, typically you have to give something back when you have a Patreon. It can't just be give me money for no reason.
Well, that's what my GoFundMe for. Right. So you'll feel good about me being comfortable and being able to travel in a nicer style than normally I would spend on myself. But you can feel good about the gift you're sending me because it's really about giving, isn't it?
Absolutely. So one more thing I wanted to say. We have been doing WTF videos on...
That's what I meant.
All of our things on Twitter, on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, where we pick one scene from each movie that has us go WTF. So check it out. I'm having fun doing it. I hope you're having fun watching it. So there you go. Next week, we'll be discussing the horror classic, Final Destination, starring Tony Todd's in this ever so briefly, Devon Sawa, other, I don't know, Sean
And
William
the
Scott.
immortal music of John Denver.
John Denver. John Denver's music equals death in this movie. Spoiler alert.
And this movie, I saw this in the theater and I haven't seen it since, but this movie was bang.
It was bang back in the day. I haven't seen it in at least 15 years. So you can watch it if you have an HBO Max or HBO account for free, although it's not
I have
free.
that, Kevin.
So you're welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So good times. It might be on other things. Take a
we don't
minute,
care.
search it out. You might have to pay if you don't have
HBO.
HBO Max. So
You need HBO. You don't need Showtime, but you do need HBO.
I agree. It's standard. So send us your favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, and questions, and we may talk about it on the show. Good times had by all. So thank you very much, and be well.
Bye, people.